Now may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts tonight be acceptable in God's sight. Amen. You may be seated. Is there something exciting going on here tonight? Do you feel it? It's not just me, is it? It's kind of crazy and kind of Christmassy and very wonderful sense of excitement and unexpectedness, and I think I know what I'm going to say, but we may be surprised. It's wonderful to have you all here tonight in this place, which is becoming more and more holy as we worship here together. We've just heard a wonderful, wonderful reading of the visit of Mary to her kinswoman, Elizabeth. Now, Elizabeth is a kinswoman, which means she's a relative, so she's probably an aunt, but she could be a cousin or a second cousin or who knows what. But she's a relative. Mary has found herself pregnant, unmarried, and she could be in all sorts of trouble, as Martha has mentioned in previous sermons, that she would have at that time more likely been stoned to death than anything else for being pregnant and not married. But our Joseph, who is one of my favorite people in the whole world ever, decides that he has a dream and he decides that yes, he will take this woman that he loves to be his wife and this child to be his child. And I think often about how many men over the thousands of years have actually done that, have made that choice, have made that right choice so that things could go on and they could be a family and life could and love could happen. Now she goes to visit Elizabeth. We don't know what state she's in exactly. She may be going to try to get Elizabeth to help her in some way. She may be wanting to just cry on her shoulder, or she may be going to rejoice. It doesn't really tell us. But when she gets there, Elizabeth gets very excited, and we don't always hear that in the reading, but we heard it tonight. Because the words are there, aren't they? The words are, she's very, very pleased that Mary would come, and she said, the child, I'm pregnant too, and the child in my womb has leapt for joy over this coming child. Now, we all know it's Jesus, so we'd say, well, of course. But it was not known at that time. But Elizabeth perceived it. And so what happens is that when Mary comes into community with her and is not alone, and they're together, instead of weeping and worrying, they are rejoicing and looking to the future and being God's people of hope. Now, today we're going to talk about, this is the last movie of the series, but it's the first movie of the 4 that was written, because this came out in 1946. Does anybody remember 1946? Anybody here? One or two of us? I was alive, but I don't remember it, because I think I was born in December of 45, so it was just, the movie came out, but they didn't take me. Okay, so this movie has been popular all these years, and it's still, young people are hearing about it. Maybe they haven't seen it, but it's available for people to see. And there must be something really wonderful about this movie. And it was called a movie drama fantasy. That's what they called it, a fantasy. I don't call it exactly a fantasy, but that's what they called it at the time. And it came out in black and white. Now you can get it in black and white and color for $11.76. That's what I paid for it. And I just bought it, and I was surprised. But I kind of like the black and white one, so you're going to see a little bit of that tonight. Now, maybe you remember this movie, some of you, and others have never heard it. Well, there's a man in it who is a very famous actor, Jimmy Stewart, and he is playing the role of George Bailey. George Bailey is a good guy. You know, those kind of guys that just always does the right thing. He was either raised properly or it's just his nature. He just does the right thing. George Bailey cares about others more than himself. he does for others. And this would work out nicely in many cases, except that he works for a savings and loan company, and he likes to give people the benefit of the doubt that they're going to pay the money back. And of course everybody intends to pay the money back, but it doesn't always happen. He has other things that go wrong in his life. He wants to go to university and get an education, but something comes up and he can't go. Then he wants to go to war and be a hero, and he gets deferred. There's some little thing wrong with him. Come on in, come on in. There's plenty of room here. So George doesn't get to go and be a war hero. His brother gets to be the war hero instead. And so George is back home trying to be a good guy, helping everybody, and he does get the girl, which is very nice because she's Donna Reed, and everybody knows Donna Reed is the perfect wife. And he has a number of children, which was the appropriate number at the time. I think it's 4. You can count them at the end of the movie. And everything seems to be okay, but it's not, because there's a very nasty man, a kind of a Scrooge guy, a kind of a Grinch guy who owns the bank, and he says, you're not making any money, this bank is going to close down. And it's right before Christmas, wouldn't you know it? And George realizes that he has been a failure in life. He is a worthless person. He can't support his wife and children. Now, it's 2016, we'd say, well, the wife could go out to work and make some money and let him stay home for a while, but that wasn't the way it was back then, and she probably couldn't have even gotten a job. There would have been no job for her. So they were in serious, serious trouble. A wife and 4 children, that's a lot of people in one family to feed and clothe and house, and it's difficult today as well. So there he is, he doesn't know what he's going to do, and then he gets the brilliant idea, which we see sometimes in the movies, that he has nothing left but his insurance policy. And if he kills himself, if he dies or accidentally dies, he thinks, then the money will go to his wife and family and they'll be okay. Because all he cares about is other people, and especially his wife and family. So George goes to the bridge, and he's going to jump off the bridge. Now, this is 2016, and we know that wouldn't work because they'd figure out that he did it, killed himself, you wouldn't get the money. But in those days, they just thought, well, if you die, you get the money. So he thinks that's what he'll do. He's very, very discouraged. And just when he's about to jump off the bridge, or he does jump off, and he's in the water, in the icy cold water, some people, it seems, have been praying for him because he's been getting very crabby lately and mean to his kids and nasty with his wife, and I guess they've been praying for him because up in heaven, the word is out. George Bailey needs to be rescued. Who's going to rescue George Bailey? And they look around and they see this old angel who still hasn't earned his wings. And I don't know how long he's been there, probably for an eternity. His name is Clarence. And they say, Clarence, we got a job for you. You're going to go and solve this problem. You're going to rescue George Bailey and get him back to his life. So he's pretty excited that he gets a chance to do something and maybe earn his wings. So, but we're thinking that when we're watching it, that what's the chance this guy hasn't, he's probably failed in every other try. How's he going to get this done? So Clarence comes down, rescues George out of the water, and tries to encourage him. He's not getting anywhere. George says the one thing that people say sometimes that they shouldn't say, he says, I wish I'd never been born. I wish I'd never been born. And so Clarence says, well, he says, maybe you'd like to see what the world would be like if you'd never been born. And then they go through and show us what would have happened to his brother, what would have happened to these people that he loaned the money to, what would have happened to other people in his life. And he comes to realize that in many, many circumstances, he was the person who made their life livable or good. He did a lot of good in this world, a lot of good. And then he realizes that if he'd never been born, he never would have met Donna Reed, his, well, whatever her name is, and wouldn't have had these beautiful children. And so he gets really, really excited, and he thinks, you know, I'd like to go back to my life, and he thinks it's too late. Everything in the world doesn't end up with a happy ending, but sometimes it does. And we find our love, and we find our solutions, and we find our hope in community. And many, many years back, before Christianity even, the Jewish people had the idea, they called it the Shekinah of God. It was like the Spirit of God. And they said that where 2 or 3 are gathered, the Spirit of God is in the midst of them. And now we as Christians say when 2 or 3 are gathered, Christ is in the midst of us. We're not alone. And when Christ is in the midst of us, good things can happen because we help each other, because we love each other. And that's what Christmas is about, and I think that's what Advent Cafe is about, being together, coming to a place and finding God there, and finding each other, and sharing their love. And so I wish you love at Christmas and every day of your life. Amen.